Have you ever looked at someone else and felt that sting, that quiet whisper that says, "You're not enough"? Well, what if I told you that a little boy once felt the same thing, until a single moment with his grandfather rewrote the way he saw his entire life? The story begins on a quiet hilltop village, where the wind carried the scent of pine trees and old secrets. Every morning, a young boy named Kelan would sit by the dusty window of his grandfather's wooden cabin, watching other children his age run, jump, and shine effortlessly. They were faster, smarter, louder, and Kelan felt like he was always trailing behind. But everything changed the day he whispered to himself, "Why can't I be like them?" Not knowing his grandfather stood silently behind him. Grandfather Rami, a man whose wrinkled hands held decades of wisdom, placed a gentle hand on Kelan's shoulder. But instead of comforting him, he said something strange. "Come with me. There's something I want to show you before the sun goes down." And without another word, he stepped outside. Curiosity tugged at Kelan like an invisible rope. Why was grandfather suddenly so serious? What did he want to show him? And why did his voice sound heavier than usual? Kelan followed him down a narrow forest path until they reached a small, forgotten lake at the foot of the mountains. The water was perfectly still, so still that it looked like a giant mirror framed by trees and fading sunlight. Then grandfather Rami did something unexpected. He picked up a small pebble and pressed it into Kelan's palm. "Throw it," he said. Kelan hesitated, confused, but the old man nodded firmly. So Kelan tossed the pebble into the lake. Ripples spread outward, crossing each other, bending, clashing, distorting the lake's perfect reflection. Grandfather Rami whispered, "That is what comparing yourself does to your soul." Kelan blinked. What? The ripples seemed so simple, yet somehow they meant more. But before he could ask, his grandfather handed him a second pebble. "And now," he said, "look closely at the ripples. What do they tell you?" The boy knelt and watched as each ripple spread beautifully, uniquely, touching the shore in its own quiet rhythm. None of them collided now. None of them fought each other. They simply existed, each one complete. The old man's voice softened. "You think you were born to match someone else's rhythm. But Kelan, you are a ripple too. A different ripple. And that difference is your gift." But Kelan still didn't understand, not fully. Because in his heart there was still a voice whispering, "But what if my ripple isn't good enough?" Grandfather Rami noticed the doubt in the boy's eyes and turned toward the towering forest behind them. "Come," he said again. "There's something else you need to see." Kelan followed him deeper into the woods, feeling the air grow cooler, the trees grow thicker, and his questions grow heavier. Why did his grandfather look almost sad? What was he hiding behind those wise, tired eyes? Finally, they reached a clearing where dozens of trees stood side by side, some tall, some crooked, some thin, some massive. The sunset cast golden stripes through their trunks. His grandfather pointed at a massive oak. "Do you see that tree? Strongest in the forest. Took a century to look like that." Then he pointed to a slender pine nearby. "But do you see this one? Grows faster than any other tree. Straight, tall, beautiful in its own way." Then he gestured at a small twisted tree struggling for sunlight. "And that one grew in a bad spot. Rocks underneath its roots. But Kelan, look at how it twists and bends just to stay alive. That tree is strong too, but in a different way." And then the old man asked the question that froze Kelan in place. "Tell me, which of these trees is wrong?" Kelan looked from tree to tree. The oak. The pine. The twisted one. None of them seemed wrong. They were just themselves. Grandfather Rami placed a hand on Kelan's heart. "That is how people are. Different soil. Different sunlight. Different storms. Yet we grow thinking we must be identical." Suddenly, everything clicked. The ripples. The trees. His grandfather's silence. It wasn't that Kelan was less, it was that he was trying to grow in someone else's shape, someone else's story. But just as this new understanding began to rise inside him, something else happened. Something Kelan would never forget. The old man's voice trembled. "Kelan, when I was your age, I compared myself too. It nearly broke me. I don't want you to carry that burden into your future. Promise me, you'll grow your own way. Kelan felt his throat tighten. His grandfather wasn't just teaching. He was remembering. He was healing. And he was passing that healing to the boy he loved. For the first time, Kelan looked at himself, not through the reflection of others, but through the quiet voice inside him. And for the first time, he liked what he saw. The sun dipped behind the mountains. The forest turned a soft blue. As they walked home, Kelan felt lighter, like someone had lifted a stone he didn't know he'd been carrying. And maybe that's the question you need to ask yourself now. What weight have you been carrying simply because you thought your value depended on someone else's life? Because here's the truth Kelan learned that night. You are not supposed to grow like anyone else. Your roots, your storms, your sunlight, your entire story is uniquely yours. And the moment you stop comparing, your true self finally begins to bloom. So the next time you catch yourself looking at someone else's life and thinking you're behind, ask yourself, behind, according to who? Take a breath. Look within. Honor your own ripple. Grow like your own tree. And accept who you are. Because the world needs the person only you can become. If this story touched something inside you, hit the like button, subscribe, and comment below. What unique gift am I learning to accept in myself? Your answer might inspire someone else today.